That was my talk. Did you get it? There were some points there. Unbecoming what I never was. Well, you're not as smart as your sister. You're dumb. You can't do that. You won't amount to anything. Unlearning what was never true. You know, if you really want to get ahead in this world, you've got to do... We've heard of a bunch of those things in our lives, haven't we? And unbelieving all the lies that I've been told. Some people learn that you can get your good at another's expense. And that's never true. That so many years, and then that's it, boy. You're toast. That you're nothing but a human being. And you got to accept the fact that you're going to live as a human being and you're going to die as a human being. Lies that we've been told. Now, in the 15th chapter of Luke, you find something you don't find in a lot of places in the Bible. You find a Trinity. Not Father, Son, Holy Spirit, but 3 parables. 3 parables that appear at first to be separate. And at one time they probably came from separate sources. But still, they work together. They become a unified whole. Not separate stories, but chapters in the same story. A story about the growth of the soul in each one of us. Now, that business about unbecoming. We become a lot of things because people told us to. We become a lot of things because, well, that's how our people are. Unbecoming is turning that all around, getting rid of, releasing those thoughts and attitudes that were only human, that there's only so much time, so much money, so much love, so much good in this world, and you better get all the good you can get before somebody else does. Unbelieving all those lies we've been told. So this chapter with these three parables, they're sort of parables of the lost. If you wanted to know where the lost and found was in the Bible, it's Luke 15. You have a lost sheep, hence my friend on the screen or on your bulletin. You have a lost coin, and then you have a lost son, the prodigal son. 3 separate chapters, a continuing story of our evolution. Now, the first story of the lost sheep, I have a video for you that so lets you see what it kind of looks like. I think it's a great story. It really is. Now, I know you've heard the definition of a parable that goes something like this. It is an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. Please, let's get so much more out of a parable than that. It has an outer side, yes. That seems absolutely obvious as you hear it. But there's an inner side that comes to you as you think upon it, as you ponder on it, as you allow it to reveal itself inside you. And you find that the parable is not about people out here, people over there, or even about a sheep somewhere. It's about some aspect within you. So the story ends up being all about you. And in this case, when I'm looking at a new translation of a Bible, I turn to this chapter. It's one of the places where I can find out how good the translation is for me. Because I do metaphysical Bible interpretation, so I need the symbols to be intact. I always since I was in ministerial school, I always use Revised Standard. The symbols seem to be intact in there. One of my teachers swore that the King James Version had the metaphysical symbols intact, although there are about 10,000 translation errors in the King James. I was amazed many years ago, well, it seems like many years ago, I guess it was late 80s, mid 80s. Unity School went to New Revised Standard, the New Revised Standard Bible. Now their commitment to translation stated, as literal as necessary, as free as possible, and as gender inclusive as it can be. When I turn to this chapter, the first parable begins with, "What man of you having 100 sheep?" Well, that's pretty good. The next one, when we get to it, is going to say, "Or what woman having 10 coins?" Man, woman. These are important metaphysical symbols where you have a man identified. It's some kind of aspect of the thinking nature, that part of consciousness or soul that is involved with thoughts in mind. When there's a woman, it is a symbol for what is within our subconscious or our feeling nature. Obviously, the new Revised Standard did not work for me, because in this place, as in other places in the Bible, their attempt to be inclusive, they were not cognizant of the metaphysical symbols that were very necessary. So this is where I like to think my Bible shines, but so do many other translations. What man of you, some aspect of your consciousness, your thinking nature, having 100 sheep? Would you like to have 100 sheep? Well, if you were in the Near East at this time, and you were a reasonably prosperous shepherd, that would be your goal. You see, for them, and for most people in the Near East at that time, 100 was as big a number as they could conceive. It's as high as any of them could count most of the time. It kind of reminded me of $100 bills. Now I have this little thing. When I have a $100 bill, I don't want to break it. I recently had a $100 bill in my pocket, the same one, for months. Because once you hand it to somebody, say you want to buy something for $1. Well, fine, I still have 99, but it's not a $100 bill. It's some singles, and it's different. In those days, that was their goal, 100, and something less was a lot less. In fact, for most shepherds, if they had 100 sheep, they were rich, and if they had 99, they were in distress because their status had changed. But a shepherd who had 75 sheep and lost 2 or 3 would not be as distressed, because he wasn't at that special number. It's relative. So it's as high as they could count. If the man represents an aspect of consciousness, and the 100 represents all, it's one with a couple of zeros. What are zeros worth? Nothing. But the one, that perfection of spirit, is all. If he's lost one of them, did you ever lose a thought? Well, sometimes I think I did. Where was I going? And I came over here for something. But that's not the same. To lose a thought, for example, to lose a thought of your oneness with God. Do you ever feel separate? Do you ever think you're here and God's off someplace else? Do you ever believe that you have the one problem that God can't cure, can't change, can't make better? That's a lost thought. Did you ever believe that there's an illness that you've acquired that's incurable? That's a lost thought. What's the truth about life? All life is God life. What is the nature of God life? Eternal, unchanging. We've been alive since the beginning. We've all got a certain number of lost thoughts, thoughts that bring to our awareness and our experience things we don't like. One of the things Charles Fillmore said that I often chuckled over, he said, some people save for a rainy day. If you do, you will surely have one. Why? Because that's the thought you hold in mind. That things could happen and you're going to need something and you better lay some aside. Well, you will have it. What you expect is what you're going to experience. So when we have these lost thoughts, they bring us all kinds of challenges and difficulties that we don't like. Well, there's not enough love in this world and nobody loves me. Well, they won't. I found out many years ago that the word lovable means able to be loved, and that's up to me as it is up to all of us. We allow ourselves to be loved. So if you think you're unlovable, that's another lost thought. Now, if he has lost one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one which is lost until he finds it. The aspect of this story is about being whole, complete. I said after our opening statement that we have perfection within us. It is implanted within us. That divine spirit, the Christ in you, that's perfection. We're not there yet in expression, but we've got this perfection within. So it's up to us to allow that out, to let our light so shine that we become a beneficial presence in this world. And Jesus said, this is in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5, verse 48, you therefore must be perfect. What? Trust me, you're not perfect yet. But you had the perfection within you. You must therefore be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. Does that make sense? Of course it does. That divine spirit within you is the image, likeness of God. The likeness of God. It's part of God. If God is perfect, what is that? That's perfection within you. So, in order to bring forth all the perfection with which we've been created, it means that we have to be perfect in consciousness, in mind, to hold thoughts and beliefs that are founded on truth principles, not on the things we've been taught. We need to become what we've been taught. We need to forget, unlearn all the lies we've been told about who and what we are. And in the song, did you notice the part where he talks about nobody sees who I am? They say, oh, what do you do? Where do you live? How old are you? They want facts about you, but they don't ask about the truth of you. What are you? God's beloved child in whom he is well pleased. So, it is for us to, I'm going to use the expression, clean up our consciousness or our thinking so that we think only things that are true, not things that are superstitious, not limitations of human perception, not the things we've been taught in school that do not work, have never been true, or by parents or well-meaning ministers and Sunday school teachers and a variety of things. How sad it was the day I, in a supermarket at the checkout, there's that impulse stuff there, and the child said, "Oh, Mommy, can I have that?" "No, but Mommy, please." "Life's hard, and then you die," she said to her child. Is that absolutely true? No, that's a lie. But we've passed these things along so often, so easily. This man who's the shepherd, think of him as the good shepherd. What does a good shepherd do? Well, he's guiding, protecting the sheep. So he represents a spiritually centered mind that seeks to keep all its thoughts, all the ideas that move through it, founded upon spiritual truth, founded on reality, the reality of God, not the appearances in this human world through our five senses. That's how we become perfect, as our Heavenly Father is perfect. So any error in thinking needs to be gone after, needs to be sought out. And through the process of denial and affirmation, denying that it has any power over you, denying that you continue to accept the belief that you are only human, that there's only so much time, that such and such a thing is incurable, or there isn't good enough in your life. You deny it to take the power out of it, but then you replace it with an affirmation of what is true. Your life is God life. It is eternal. It is pure and perfect. And your life is from the foundation of the world. And we accept that. It soon becomes part of us, becomes one of our belief systems. And then we begin to experience things that reflect these ideas instead of the old ones that kept bringing what we didn't want. In the 80s, I think it was about mid-80s, I got a sample book for review. They wanted my opinion of this particular text. I saw the title and I wanted to throw it out the window. You don't have the luxury of one negative thought. Please. Just one. I only want one. Maybe a day, but I want one. But that's the reality. Every thought, Charles Schumer said, is formative. And we think one thought, oh, well, I have one negative thought today. Well, I'm going to later maybe dwell on that thought. And pretty soon it's going to have children in my mind. And pretty soon I'm experiencing hate, lack, depression. Enough. The two guys who wrote that book, they were right, but it wasn't what I wanted to hear in the moment. It is for us to be vigilant. Now, if we have a shepherd, we also need to have a poor woman in the stories. So the second parable, or what woman having 10 silver coins? Notice the value has gone up. It was 1 out of 100. Now we have 10 coins. If she loses one coin, does not light a lamp and sweep the house and seek diligently until she finds it. We'll stop right there. Well, the woman represents some aspect of the subconscious or your feeling nature. Now, I'm sure every one of you knows and could tell me exactly what's in your subconscious right now, right? No, it's the basement of your mind. It's kind of dark, and most of the time, we don't know what's in there. We only know what we feel when it bubbles up. Now, in the creative action of thought, first there's a thought, and then there's a feeling that follows. That's why you have Adam first and Eve. Eve wasn't derivative, but the feeling does come out of the thinking process. So you can't readily see those feelings. You feel them. They bubble up from down inside you. So it's more difficult to see those. So she lights a lamp. It's the equivalent of, in meditation, looking within, asking for guidance, seeking to bring them up into the light of truth or the light of the day so you can know what's going on down in there. It requires that we look. When you find a thought, you're going to find feelings that follow. So it's one process. You go after the thought, then you go after the feeling, and begin to acknowledge that that's not the real of you. That's not the truth about you. Sweep the house and seek diligently. You know, why would she sweep the house? Well, the floors of their houses in the Near East was formed of stones. And there were separate stones, so there were cracks in between. Archaeologists today even can date a house by the coins they find buried in the cracks. If she's sweeping away, you hit a silver coin, isn't it going to clink, make noise in the dark? It can be lifted up out of the crack so she can find it. The same idea as with the thinking. The whole consciousness, the thinking nature, the feeling nature, the conscious, the subconscious, need to be spiritualized. When I say that about consciousness, it always reminds me of that wonderful affirmation that I love so much from May Rowland. My body is spiritualized and electrified, and I am made every whit whole. I know you use that word wit often, don't you? Yeah. Spiritualized, the whole consciousness. Thinking and then the feeling. But the thinking has to be dealt with first. So the symbolism expresses much the same we had in the first parable. To cleanse the consciousness. Now, as Jesus taught that the whole consciousness needs to be cleaned up and spiritualized, when you do this, as you do it, step by step, your whole being is lifted up. It's lifted up in spirit as the lost thoughts and the lost feelings are healed, brought into the light of truth. As you follow what the song suggested when he said, get my reminder, unbecoming what I never was, unlearning what was never true, unbelieving all the lies that I've been told. Let no one tell you you're only human again. Better yet, if you are told, don't believe it. Don't accept it. For we know the truth. God's beloved child, in whom God is well pleased.